J.K. Dobbins, Josh Jacobs, and the future of the Minnesota Vikings backfield. That's what we're talking about today on the dive. The first episode for a little bit now that we're not talking about an entire position. We're doing a format now that I think is going to be a little bit more probably regular for our episodes now, where we're just really dig into particular situations, particular guys, particular roster strategy, and just do deep dives on particular players and situations. And I am Chase Marquette-Gaines. With me, once again, Roto Street Emery. Dude, you tired of talking about anchors?
Oh, no. Can never get tired about that. The big dogs, no.
Well, maybe, we'll put that off for maybe a year or so.
Sure, yeah.
But we only got a couple more shows now between now and when the NFL season is going to start. And so, it's really, it's impossible to cover everything. But we're picking out some guys. It's a very running back centric episode where we're going to be talking about. You could argue there are more interesting running backs to talk about right now, but particularly with contract situations and just sort of a whole bunch of different factors that we'll get into. We're going to pick out J.K., Josh Jacobs, and then Minnesota. You got Alexander Mattison, DeWayne McBride, Ty Chandler, Kanane Nwangwu? Nah, forget him. Nah.
I don't know if that's in the cards this year, but we shall see.
We'll see. He'll break out at, like I said, he'll break out at 28, 29 like Cordero.
Yeah.
So I'm going to hang on to him on my team for like 6 years. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. We'll have to expand the taxi slot.
Let's get the deets going here.
All righty. Yeah, we talked pre-show that at least I think J.K. Dobbins is probably one of the most interesting players in fantasy coming back this year. He had a up and down season last year. Obviously, he came into the year with a bum knee, hurt himself in camp following an ACL injury in his rookie year, and he's in a situation now where Lamar Jackson's primed to get back into an MVP sort of position. New OC in Baltimore. What's his last name?
Monken.
There it is. Monken. I knew it was Todd. A much different mind than they had in the past. Gus Edwards is back, so he's gonna certainly dig into a little bit of what JK's got going on. But a healthy J.K. Dobbins is going to be pretty fun to watch this year, since we haven't seen it in 2 years, and his rookie year was, again, super fun to watch. An explosive guy. I have a bit of a bias as an Ohio State fan, but still think that he's primed here.
Yeah, so I'm coming in here talking about, all I want to talk about today is J.K. Dobbins' ceiling. That's what I'm bringing to the table, but I probably should be a little bit hesitant to be talking like that, right?
Yeah. The contract situation, it's been hammered out on SportsCenter and First Take and NFL Network. It's all over that. Mainly between Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley. But J.K. Dobbins and Jonathan Taylor are the two guys that seem to be in the position where they're going to be the next up for this sort of holdout situation. And so trying to figure out how J.K. Dobbins projects moving into next season is it's going to be interesting because he's only played so much, like so little. You posed a question to me: how concerned are you about his hold in? And currently, I said that if I was going to grade it on a 1 to 10 scale, I would put it as a 4. I would say 4-ish. That's not very high, right? But that's because we have learned that Saquon's taken a little bit more money than the franchise tag for running backs. But we don't know what Josh Jacobs is going to do. Have you heard what's the news out of Oakland at the moment?
I don't know. We could look it up real quick. What was that, like a week or probably more than a week ago now, that he said I'm going to be not in Las Vegas for a while.
Right.
Yeah.
The only thing I've really heard is that the fantasy experts on Twitter are liking the fact that Zamir White is playing pretty well. He's shown some vision, shown up in the passing game, which we know he can do. That's sort of why he was drafted there. But the reason why I was hesitant about really being concerned about J.K. Dobbins is just because Saquon already signed. Next year, it looks like the franchise tag is about to bump up. It's at like 10.9 million right now, and next year it's sitting at a hair over 13. It's like 13.05 for next
year. Regardless, though, aren't running backs going to want long-term contracts? Is it still going to be this? Is it still going to be this? This is pretty bad right now. So, but is it going to be like this next year too? Like I don't know. I kind of feel like there's a chance that something, I don't know. It can't just keep going on like this.
No, and the reason I bring up the franchise tag is because the bottom line number is going to be higher next year. And so there's also a massive crop of free agents next year coming out. I'm pulling it up here on Spot Track. Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, Saquon Barkley, Austin Eckler, Cordero Patterson, Gus Edwards, Devin Singletary, Clyde, DeAndre Swift, Donta Foreman, Jonathan Taylor, Damian Harris, Amir Abdullah going into his year 31 season. Don't forget about him. And then J.K. Dobbins. That's not even half of the guys that are going to be either unrestricted or restricted, mostly unrestricted next year going in. And so the landscape for running backs is going to be very, very telling. And if Saquon hadn't has signed for, the 1-year deal that he did this year, I would be very, very concerned about JK and JT and all those guys going into next year. But that would definitely bump up my concern. But I can't say that I'm overly concerned at the moment. You got to wait for him to show out healthy wise, in my opinion.
Yeah, this whole thing's rough because I was just thinking today, what if if you're a running back and you're 24, 25 years old trying to get another contract, like what if you end up being like Curtis Martin, who I know he was an anomaly, but he had like 300 touches in his like age 31 season or something like that. There's like 10 straight seasons of 300 touches. Like that's the anomaly. But sure. What if you're like, okay, this is, I understand they're devaluing the position, blah, 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 I'll take less money and stuff. And then you have this long productive career where you didn't get paid as much as backup wide receivers. Like it's tough. But I kind of go into this not thinking too much about holdouts and whatnot, just because it's so hard to project. And sure. you can project them as far as what you might do in the moment as far as your roster. But when I'm thinking about any of these guys, I'm sort of just assuming 80-20, assuming that they're going to get something worked out and they're not going to sit out any games and they'll be on the field. Because ultimately that's kind of what everybody wants anyway. Like that's what the coaches want. That's really what the GMs want. They want good guys to be out there playing on their team. That's what the NFL powers that be want. They don't want their, big name, any big names just sitting out like that. That's
right.
So 4 out of 10 is probably a pretty good number, I think. I feel like Dobbins. I feel like they'll work something out, and he'll be on the field.
He's also said he wants to be a Raven for life, so that could pan out differently for him. But if that's true to his word, if he wants to be a Raven for life, then it would make sense for him to sign something.
Tunes coming in and saying, yeah, I've seen some of this too, that the Chiefs and Broncos, the rest of the AFC West is interested in Josh Jacobs. So that would be That'd be kind of weird on the Broncos. Definitely, the Chiefs. He's taking over for Pacheco right there. But then you have Josh Jacobs and Javonte Williams. That would be interesting and not good for my fantasy team who has both of those guys. So we might as well get into enough contract talk. Let's get into kind of this mini obsession I've had thinking about J.K. Dobbins' ceiling. I feel like this is a guy, if he's happy and healthy in 2023, that he could just blow up, and it raises a couple questions. Now, I know Dobbins got rookie year 6 yards a carry. Last year 5.7 yards a carry. It's just ridiculous. But he doesn't just have that going on for him either. He's got. Let's see how well this is going to work out. But he's got some red zone usage. It's not doing anything. So if you can't see it, this is just from some few stats from Fantasy Pros here about Josh Jacobs' red zone usage, or not Josh Jacobs, but Dobbins' red zone usage in 2020. That one real healthy year, inside the 10. You still had Gus Edwards there, but still J.K. Dobbins saw 10 carries inside the 10. Gus Edwards got 7. Justice Hill got 2. So there he's got the majority. And you go to inside the 5. J.K. Dobbins, 7 attempts inside the 5, got 6 touchdowns on those 7 carries. Gus Edwards, 4. Justice Hill, 2. So he was the guy getting the goal line usage even.
And that's with Lamar Jackson and Tyler Huntley on the field too.
Mm-hmm. So you look at this stretch that he had, this tear that he went on, weeks 11 through 17 in 2020, just ridiculous. At least 1 touchdown in every game, right? 6 games, 7 touchdowns total. And that was 12.83 carries a game.
Yeah, on a max of 55% usage.
Yeah. And the other thing, that's worth pointing out right here, only one reception on 2 targets during those last 5 games. Dude wasn't being used in the passing game at all. And so we got Todd Monken coming in as OC. Monken, everything that I read here with that, he's not trying to stop Lamar Jackson from running. To me, it's like it's an expansion of the pass game. And then if Lamar's, rushing production goes down, that's more or less kind of a byproduct, but he's not here to necessarily do that. That's secondary just to expanding the passing game. Last couple of years, Ravens have prioritized the wide receiver position in the draft with Bateman, with Flowers. You got a third wide receiver now in OBJ if he's healthy, and I think he's 31, but not a bad wide receiver 3 there with OBJ. To have Mark Andrews there too, who's basically another guy getting wide receiver production. You have those 4 guys, and still there might be some a little bit left over for J.K. Dobbins to get this receiving role. Can you imagine these numbers he would have had the last 6 games of 2020 if he would have got something like 3, if he would have averaged something like 3 catches for 20 yards during that span? It would have been ridiculous.
Yeah, it would.
So, and
this is on top of Lamar saying he wants to throw for 5,000 yards, and he is super happy with the as far as I know, the additions of Flowers and Odell. I wonder how much of the loss of Hollywood Brown not affected him last year, but I wonder what sort of like psyche bit that could have played with him. I know he was hurt too, but I think that there's a huge commitment, obviously, we've seen monetarily and personnel-wise to Lamar Jackson this year to making sure that this team is a balanced offense more than just they're not going to come out like the Atlanta Falcons next year. I think that the emphasis was made on surrounding an MVP talent with palatable NFL players that can win your division, one of the toughest divisions in football, I would say, outside of the AFC East and maybe the West. But I would say the AFC North is probably the second toughest division, in my opinion. They are planning on competing. I mean, the Bengals are going to be Super Bowl contenders. The Steelers are always going to be there. The Browns, we talked about it on our last show, that the Browns could go out and do something crazy. They could play like the Browns of old, but the Ravens are committed here. And Dobbins is hopefully going to be a huge part of that. You've got the Todd Monken experience down here with the running backs he's had. Why don't you break that down just a bit?
Yeah, so it's not too complicated. A lot of words, a lot of names and numbers on there, but basically, Todd Monken's running back usage, where he's been, looks like got the past 6 years. Got two that say 2017 down there, but that was 2018, 2017, 2016. Anyway, so his time with the Georgia Bulldogs, his last 2 seasons, there was a split with the running back usage. A split between Kenny McIntosh and Dejan Edwards in 22. With Zamir White and James Cook, there was a split in 21. But in 2020, Zamir was the guy, basically. See, Kenny McIntosh came in second there, getting 47 carries to 144 for Zamir White. Now, when you go to Tampa Bay, and this is a little bit of a stroll down memory lane, his running back usage there, 2018, Peyton Barber just ran away with it. Peyton Barber, how about that guy, right? 234 carries to Jacquizz Rodgers 33.
Funky season.
Yeah, it was. And that was kind of, you look at 2017 and 2016. So, in 2017, when Doug Martin was healthy, he was the guy. When he was out, it was Barber. And then in 2016 is what it should say there at the bottom. When Doug Martin was healthy, he was the guy. But when he was injured, it was Jacquizz. So you look at the numbers, the season total numbers. It looks like it's a split, but you go through and check out the game logs. Doug Martin was injured here and there those 2 seasons. But there was a definitive lead back, whoever was playing there with Todd Monken in Tampa Bay. So really you have this split. You have 4 seasons. It's worth pointing out, didn't include 2019 when Monken was with the Cleveland Browns, because that was the horrid Freddie Kitchens show where Todd Monken was the offensive coordinator, but it was Freddie Kitchens calling the plays. Yeah. So I'm not gonna hold that against Todd.
That was also the Browns hard knock year, right? The Set Hut guy, the big boy.
I think so. It wouldn't have been 20. Now I'm wondering if that was 2018 or 2019. It might have been 2018.
Well, I feel like it was the Rams and it was the LA teams in 2020, and I think before that was the Browns. So
okay,
maybe, I don't know. But I also, was that 2018 year, the Peyton Barber explosion? Was that when Jameis threw for 30 interceptions and is that what got Monken moved to Cleveland?
It might have been, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I didn't check out Winston's numbers that year, but yeah, it might have been. So you see a guy in Todd Monken who's not really particular about whether he wants a one workhorse guy or wants to go with a committee approach.
Yeah.
And so that told me, as far as JK and Gus Edwards are concerned, that he's going to roll with talent. And so if JK comes out healthy and he comes out 100%, and if he's like the hot hand and he can stay the hot hand basically all year, I think he's definitely more apt for explosive plays than Gus Edwards. And in a system like Todd Monken's, I think that is something that Monken is going to want to prefer too.
Yeah.
So as far as that goes, you look at the running back usage history, nothing to me stands out as something that could get in J.K. Dobbins' way. Seems purely talent driven, and so that leaves the ball in J.K. Dobbins' court. basically.
Just looking here at that 2019 season was the Jameis Winston explosion. He was the 4th overall quarterback. 305 fantasy points, 5,109 yards, 33 touchdowns, 30 interceptions. Crazy.
Yeah, so that's I think that works out to about like 320 passing yards a game with Todd Monken, with Jameis Winston as his quarterback. Yeah. And now he's got Lamar.
Yeah.
So another reason to salivate right there.
Certainly.
So I'm here to focus on J.K. ceiling. Wolf and his Ravens projections. Here's what he gave for J.K. Dobbins this season. 12.3 carries per game, 66.4 rushing yards. That's 5.4 a carry. 2.3 catches per game, 15.1 pass yards per game, and 9 total touchdowns. That works out to 212 and a half PPR points. That's 12 and a half points per game, and that is the RB 16 on a per game rate. So he's projecting him as a mid RB2. Well, we're not here to talk about the middle of the road for J.K. Dobbins. We're here to talk about a ceiling. And so I took I got my final projection here. And I basically took the sample size from weeks 11 through 17 in 2020. Because that was week 11 was when you saw JK hit a stride with the offense. And then you saw that tear he went on through the end of the season.
Yeah.
And then we didn't see him healthy in 21, obviously. And then in 22, had some work redone on his knee. And then when he did come back, there was like week 14 through 17, he had some numbers that weren't that impressive, but also Tyler Huntley was at the helm at that time. So I didn't really want to use that in the sample. Nonetheless, there's enough arguments out there for how the Pro Bowl has just lost its meaning over the years. And now, now we have Tyler Huntley to more or less give us another one. But so we have 3 years of J.K. Dobbins so far, but really just the 7-week stretch at the end of 2020 is, to me, really the only thing that we can really pull a sample size off from. Yeah. And that was when he had 82.5 rushing yards per game. So I took that. I did it over 15 carries instead of the 12.83 because that was a ridiculous like 6.5 yards a carry. So 15 carries per game, 82.5 rushing yards per game. That's a career low 5.5 yards per carry. And then I gave him 3 catches per game for 21 passing yards and 15 total touchdowns. So just about 1 touchdown per game. And I think this is a realistic ceiling for JK.
Sure.
And really, and these numbers could go even higher. We've seen the talent when the guy's healthy. And if he gets this workhorse role that Todd Monken has used for other running backs while he was at Tampa Bay, and Zamir White in 2020 during his time with Georgia, I think it can certainly happen with JK. So it has to be part of the discussion if we're talking about a realistic ceiling for him. So with my projection here, that gives him 306.45 half PPR points on the season. That's 18.02 points per game. Last year, that would have been the RB3. You go back, a decade, and that averages about to the RB 4.7, so about the RB 5. Mm-hmm. Down last year was a bit of a down year for running backs. So that's about the RB 5. That's top 6, and even getting into the conversation of top 3, if he is able to expand even more on those numbers. So let's say that. Pause right here. Is there anything I'm saying that is unreasonable, you think?
Not unreasonable in terms of a ceiling. My thought when I was reading our notes going into this, who are you putting J.K. Dobbins? So, okay, who you got him at RB5 here, say. The top 5 are McCaffrey, Eckler, and then JK.
Oh,
I just wanted to break this down. I'm looking at projections here. I've got the sleeper projections have him the RB 18 tied with Dameon Pierce. 236 rushes, 1,110 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns, 22 yards receiving, 29 receiving receptions. That's just a projection. He's also currently on the physically unable to perform list. But that's preseason stuff. He can come off that whenever. I'm just interested to know where, like, who is he? He's got a better season than Bijan. He's got a better season than Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard. I'm interested to know where, because I don't disagree with what you're saying. I just am. There's a lot of good running backs out there, and like we spoke with Lamar Jackson trying to throw for 5,000 yards, becoming a better, more well-rounded offense in total. Is that receiving bump, you think, from JK going to put him in that like upper echelon, top 10, top 7, top 5 running backs?
I think it could. It's a tough call when you have two different options that could happen realistically too. The Ravens could come out firing on all cylinders with a fresh new look offense, or there could be this transitionary period where there's some growing pains too. So I kind of thought with giving him 3 catches for 21 yards on average was not too bad. I thought there was definitely room for more too. I don't want to say I feel like he could have a Todd Gurley season.
Oh, absolutely. But would you say like maybe 5 receptions for 60 yards is unreasonable? I think that may be a bit like to average that. I don't think that's an average, but
yeah, no, that's maybe a few games over.
Yeah, if he was averaging that, that would then push, in my opinion, push him into that top 7 or 8 back. But there are obviously guys projected above him that going back to just what I said. I mean, Travis Etienne, we don't know what's going to happen with Tank Bigsby. Everybody on Twitter seems to love that camp news and things. We heard that Jahmyr Gibbs is looking great, but is Jahmyr Gibbs in a timeshare with David Montgomery really going to be better than J.K. Dobbins? He's projected the 14th running back. Joe Mixon, you never know. He's getting old. Aaron Jones, I've heard that the Green Bay Packers don't know how to play offensive football. So there are guys ahead of him on this list that I could certainly see JK jumping over. I think that, yes, this is an absolute ceiling call that you've got here, and I think Todd Gurley is an interesting pick. I think Todd Gurley caught the ball a lot more, if I'm not mistaken, but that was just because Atlanta's offense ran through Todd Gurley.
Yeah, it's not gonna do as much in Baltimore, regardless. But that was the time when the Rams had, they had Brandon Cooks, Robert Woods, and Cooper Kupp as their 3 receivers also.
Yeah.
So they were really in a position to fire on all cylinders and just be one of maybe the most high-powered offense in the league there for a couple of years. I think Baltimore has that potential.
I like that too. I mean, you talk in LA, Gurley was still that monster season he had. I still remember him stopping at the goal line. What was it, like week 1 or 2, where they could have just iced the game with a touchdown.
I vaguely remember that. Yeah,
but even in when he was in Atlanta too, it was who was there? They had another running back that they split time with, and Todd Gurley was still a top 10 running back with Julio Jones, with a young Calvin Ridley. What was that dude?
Was it still Devontae Freeman?
Yeah, that's who it was. Yeah, exactly. Both of those guys were fantasy relevant. Todd Gurley was a top 10 running back. Julio was a top 10 receiver. Matt Ryan was playing like an MVP. But yeah, we've seen that these great offensive teams can protect 4 or 5 top 50 fantasy players, and so I would love this to be the ceiling for JK. Like I said before, big fan of him. Own him in a couple leagues, but I'm hesitant to say that this is more probable than not. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I wouldn't. This is. I think it's a realistic ceiling, but it's still talking ceiling. It's not talking middle of the road outcomes here.
Yeah.
As far as the talent on that offense, I mean, I would say that again, if he's healthy, JK might be the second most talented skill player behind Mark Andrews for Lamar Jackson to throw to, and he might even be make a push for first. I mean, we can't underplay just how little we've seen of JK in these 3 years. It's been 2020 feels like forever ago now.
Yeah, and you have to put emphasis too on that yards per carry. 5.5 yards per carry being is the lowest career total in these projections,
Mm-hmm.
And you're projecting 15 carries for what you said 80
82 and a half.
Yeah, that's bananas to think about. If he's getting 82 yards a game on only 15 carries, like we've seen, he's going to absolutely smash that yard per carry thing. And that's, I mean, in a situation with limited volume, say Zay Flowers or say Odell Beckham has a resurgence. Zay Flowers is so fast that he outruns everybody. There are going to be limited touches. And so to have a guy that has like even his floor, could be 5 yards a carry, 4.8 yards per carry. That's got that. Volume is everything in especially at the running back position. But if you can diversify that volume, if he's still running at 5 yards a clip, and then you just add 2 or 3 more receptions a game,
Yeah, up from zero, next to zero.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's so enticing and so exciting about. That's why we were talking, like I said at the beginning of the show, that J.K. Dobbins is one of the most interesting fantasy players this upcoming season. I'm glad that you share the same sort of obsession, like you said. That I think we're in for something super fun in Baltimore. I know a lot of people are thinking Baltimore is the dark horse Super Bowl champ. I don't really think much into that, but
maybe if they start to hit their stride, like as the playoffs get closer, then yeah. If I had to pick one between whether they're going to come out of the gate struggling a bit or coming out of the gate firing on all cylinders, I would lean towards the first one. Just kind of a period there to get used to have everybody get used to the offense and get on the same page and clicking.
Right. I wanted to see 20. Oh, that I was just looking up Lamar's MVP season. I wanted to know what they because they were the first overall seed in the playoffs, and but then lost to Tennessee. I had a point I wanted to make. Never mind.
Well, and to be fair, I haven't been keeping track of their Baltimore's defense.
Sure.
I don't know if I know that hasn't been like the great defense that it had been here for the last couple of years. I think they were. We're in a bad defense, but we're still like a tier below where we've been used to seeing them for, I don't know, the past 2 decades.
Yeah, definitely. I know the Roquan Smith trade and extension was promising for them. I'm just gonna see if I can find a ranking here.
Well, to be fair, all things considered, the strength of schedule for the Ravens is pretty middle of the pack, pretty kind of all over the place between teams that had, good defenses last year and bad defenses, teams that had good offenses last year and bad ones. So you don't really know what the game script is going to be all over the place too, unless they're, strictly real pass happy under the Monken scheme now. But so I want to run this scenario by you, because this really isn't player specific. This is more situation specific. But we can just use JK as a great example right now. Your team in the RSJ Superflex Dynasty League is a contender who has some age concern. Not a lot, but there's enough age concern there that it's a factor when you're thinking about making your moves going forward, right?
Right.
So you got JK here. Let's say dude goes on a tear and he's a top three running back at the first half of the season, right? Dude, right now he's 24 and a half. I can't remember exactly when he turns 25. I don't think it's in season, but he's right there in the middle of your normal running back age apex, where it's starting to peak now.
Yeah.
And go downhill, even though the dude only has 229 career touches because of his injury so far. So, but you got to remember that injury history. You got to remember that defenses may adjust after watching tape of the Todd Monken scheme. Maybe in season they catch up to the scheme, maybe after a full off season. And then the third thing not included in the visual there is just the small sample size. My projections were taken from 6 games in 2020 where everything was kind of clicking for him and he was healthy. So with all those things in mind, you're sitting there as an mildly aging contender. J.K. Dobbins, 24 and a half years old, goes on a tear. And you're a contender, so clearly you want to win now.
Yeah.
But you also got to think about the future too. So does the thought enter your mind then, do I sell high on this guy, even though he's for the rest of us, 24 is young, but for running backs, you have a lot of these dynasty players out there doing their best Leonardo DiCaprio impersonation and trying to sell the running backs before the 25. Do you sell high on J.K. Dobbins, or do you ride him to the championship, or try to ride him to a championship in 2023?
I think you prefaced it being I appreciate you pulling this up. You prefaced it being situational, because I don't have the youngest running back core. I mean, the guys like Jonathan Taylor's the same age, going into the same sort of off season. Joe Mixon is aging for sure. David Montgomery just entered a timeshare in Detroit. Samaje Perine is on the wrong side of 25, but looks promising. He had a great end of the season last year with Mixon missing a little time. James Robinson can't stay healthy apparently. Brian Robinson, we haven't seen him play without serious injury. So I would have to say, I think that the two guys that I would consider moving if I at a sell high point right now are DJ Moore and J.K. Dobbins. Those would be the two guys that I would consider moving off of. DJ Moore is still 26, entering his 27 year. And like you said, J.K. Dobbins still not 25 yet. But the injuries are a real concern. I mean, we saw it last year. It looked like he couldn't stretch his legs out. It looks like he couldn't fully, like, he didn't have the range of motion to run correctly. Do you remember seeing that? There was like one of his first games back last season. He just looked so stiff, like no breakaway speed, got through into the secondary and just looked like he was running on chopsticks, you know.
Was this before or after this was like knee cleanup?
It was after. It was like when he was supposed to like be back fully healthy. Like, and he had just, it looked really funny. So I mean, J.K. Dobbins is certainly out of those guys looking at this roster right here, DJ Moore and J.K. Dobbins are the two guys that I would move off of. Especially knowing that I only have a 4th round pick next year in the rookie draft. I'm not too worried about draft picks. I've had a great sort of run with these guys, especially with Cooper Kupp. I mean, I think I drafted him in the 10th round of our startup. Got Jonathan Taylor in the 1st, who then had a breakout year, had his RB1 year. I mean, I've only lost 6 games fantasy-wise, so I mean, it would be hard for me to sort of change this lineup up. But I think if J.K. Dobbins is going crazy, like you're saying, he's coming out the gate, he's on fire. What is the return like that for that? What do I get?
It has to be something where you can still win now, right? You have to be in that case, you're getting both win now and something for the future, right? Both of those have to be in there, right?
Yeah.
Unless maybe you get 2 guys who are win now guys, maybe, right?
Yeah.
So I guess the future isn't necessarily concerned. I know, like you're trying to make moves to secure a better future with this contending team too. If you get 2 guys who are older vets for J.K. Dobbins that can win it for you right now.
Yeah.
Is that something that you're down for? I don't have particular guys like off the top of my head, but is there like 2 players that are like older veterans that maybe have 1 or 2 seasons left that you would go, yeah, this will put me over the hump for 23. Let's do it.
So let just in this scenario, say it's like Devontae Adams. That's probably a guy that, if I'm talking about aging vets, if I want, Devontae Adams is probably at his lowest point right now. Let me find. It doesn't help that Jackson has Devontae Adams, but that would probably be where I would start. Like a guy that can come in and still go crazy. I mean, he's the 9th overall player last year, and he's 30, but he doesn't have any sort of expectation of slowing down. Do you think? Right?
No. I'm talking about the normal age apex for running backs, but I'm talking about JK. But Devontae seems like the kind of player who is that kind of outlier who can put up wide receiver 1 numbers for another like 3-4 years.
Yeah. So in this situation, say I'm looking at Jackson's team. If he's like Devontae Adams and maybe like Calvin Ridley for JK in a 2nd rounder or something, I would definitely do that. But then where is my running back of the future going to be?
Might have to be in 2025 with your 1st rounder, or maybe even that 2nd rounder. I think if you've got, if you're in a situation where you've got now, Cooper Kupp and Devontae Adams and Calvin Ridley, and if he comes back to what we think he can be, you've got another prime asset there that you can turn into a running back then if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
And then end up getting.
My other thought for trading JK was see if I could trade him for like a mid-tier quarterback straight up. I know we talked last week you and I personally, that I don't play. This is my only super flex league. The other leagues that I have 5 leagues and 2 of them are super flex. But this is the only one, like the big one that I know everybody in, that I play super flex with. So I'm usually a 1 quarterback guy. I don't really know. My initial thought was flip J.K. Dobbins for Tua straight up. Give me your thoughts on that.
Just the players or the team that's involved with that too, since Duck's got Tua.
Duck does have Tua.
Yeah, we can leave. Let's not do, let's do JK for Tua straight up. And this is for if JK breaks out this season and goes on a tear, say the first half of the year.
Yeah. And Tua stays healthy. Tua plays like he played last year.
Yeah. So let me absorb that for a minute. Try to think of what I would do, because I still kind of value Tua as his like not going to retire anytime soon value.
Yeah.
And I probably would in a trade. And so are you asking me, do I have Tua right now or do I have JK?
You have Tua, I have JK. I come to you and say, well, hey, I've got JK. He's playing great. Need to solidify my run at quarterback. I've got a flex substitute that I can pop in. I need a better quarterback than Derek Carr right now.
I don't know if I do that, just because obviously whatever my roster makeup is matters a lot here.
Sure.
If I have somebody because Tua more than likely, there's a good chance Tua is my QB1. So if I have 2 other quarterbacks who can fit into the QB and the super flex spot nicely, and this team, my team needs a running back to get to that next level, it's got to be it's straight up. I don't know that I'm doing that. If we're not considering rosters, I just I don't know, because we're talking about J.K. Dobbins going on a tear, and if someone say he goes on a tear and somebody offers him to me, would definitely be tempting. Like I would definitely be factoring in, what if this guy keeps it up for another 2 seasons after this at this kind of pace,
right?
Because if he did, then that is like the kind of thing you kind of envy. So there's a situation where JK for Tua ends up being a win for the JK side.
Yeah, right.
But I don't think I do it in a vacuum. I think I keep Tua. If we're probably not talking about a QB. Well, we might be talking about a lower QB1, but not Tua. It's not that far away. But I have to say no.
Sure, and I think that's where I would fall too. That was my first initial thought. Let me pull up some rankings here. At least the projected rankings.
And I want to point it out too. You were mentioning J.K. Dobbins week 14 through 17 last year, where he didn't look like his leg didn't look like it was 100%. It looked like more it was like 65 or 70%, right? So the yards per carry during those 4 games: 8, 9.62, 4.92, 5.47.
It's just bananas.
Yeah, it is. Guy with the bum knee he doesn't have his knee back yet, and he's still putting up those kind of numbers.
Seriously, yeah. Okay, so I'm looking here at season projections next year. Obviously, the top guys: Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, Lamar, Justin Fields, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, Dak Prescott, and Tua's at 11. There seems to be a massive cliff right there in terms of productive young quarterback ones. Would you say? Because after that, we've got Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, Anthony Richardson, which is obviously he's an unknown commodity, but a huge upside guy. Russell Wilson, Geno Smith, Daniel Jones, and then you get to Jordan Love, Bryce Young, Jared Goff. I think Tua is the last guy that I would want to target. If I needed to get a quarterback, Tua is the lowest I would target with a guy like JK.
Okay.
Because I couldn't get Trevor Lawrence. I couldn't get Deshaun Watson probably. I don't want Dak Prescott for J.K. Dobbins. And then Herbert, Burrow, Fields, Jackson, Hurts, Allen, Mahomes are all fairly untouchable to a degree, you know?
Yeah, and I think that
we do have Hurts too, so.
Mm-hmm. So if J.K. goes on this hypothetical tear, and he's a top 3 fantasy running back after 8 weeks, I still don't know that you're going to have a lot of believers that's going to be multi-year or anything when it comes to JK.
Mm-hmm.
But with that in mind, if you did, it's definitely worth seeing. You're going to have to see what you can, like, you still got to throw the bone out there,
right,
and see what kind of return you get. If he goes on that kind of tear, I think you definitely don't want to be like too proud to keep him, basically, and then miss out on some real nice value potentially.
Absolutely. And I know this is off subject, but I feel the same way about DJ Moore too. I mean, he's the hot new young receiver that an up and coming potential stud quarterback is getting. And I think that there's going to be a lot of buzz. Say DJ Moore goes for 2 touchdowns week 1, that price is going to skyrocket.
Mm-hmm.
But not what we're talking about. I just felt that those two guys are sort of in the same vein.
Yeah, but this is like I said to start it off with. This is more of a situational question than it is like a player specific question, because how many times are you on a contender, on an aging contender, and you have a player that is sort of like he's not quite young anymore at 24 and a half, and then he blows up and he's at the peak of that kind of apex for his position.
Yeah.
And you got to ask yourself, am I winning now, or am I trying to do both, win now and secure some future assets at the same time?
Right.
I had a corny little notebook that they gave us all in high school, and it had quotes in it. So I can't remember who said the quote, but I thought it was interesting. The one quote one day was, if you chase 2 rabbits, both will leave.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of relevance here, I would say, because you don't want to get like, if you've got like JK on a tear, you want to get the best of that world than you do trying to get the middle of both worlds of winning now and securing the future probably.
Right. And I feel as though I'm very deep in, like, I'm all in on winning within probably this year, if not next year is the very last end of the frame, you know. Next year is probably, if I don't win this year, next year has to be a blow it up in one direction or the other, you know. I'm trading my 2 firsts in the next 2 years for legit guys, and I'm pushing the chips, or I'm selling off DJ Moore, J.K. Dobbins, Jonathan Taylor, and recouping some picks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting. There is nothing more to it than situation, but I think it's interesting. I think my initial thought was Tua, but I wouldn't want to go any lower than Tua in terms of like ranking wise, and I don't think I can get anything higher than Tua for JK.
Maybe I'm still like me and Wolf talking about Daniel Jones. We're both high on him for the future. I might go, if you offered me, if it was JK and I was getting back Daniel Jones, I might go for the Jones side there.
Yeah, I wouldn't
probably pull that trigger.
I wouldn't do that in a million years, unfortunately.
Yeah, we'll see. One of the more polarizing guys, just in general, not just in the RSJ community, I imagine.
Definitely.
So,
If I had to die on a hill, it would not be the hill manned by Daniel Jones.
So we're talking about JK. We're also talking about Josh Jacobs.
Yeah.
But really, when it comes to Josh Jacobs, like no matter what situation you're in, until this dude signs a long-term deal or something, he's a hold, right?
Absolutely.
Like who's gonna come get this guy right now? But say Josh Jacobs strikes a deal. Like what's Miles Sanders' contract was 4 years, 25 mil.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say tomorrow, Josh Jacobs, 4 years, 48 mil. What is his dynasty value at that point?
RB, definitely a top 5 RB. Behind Bijan Gibbs, I would put him ahead of Eckler. I would say he's probably RB4 behind McCaffrey.
Okay. And I can't really I can't disagree with that too much. I mean, the guy I think is RB1 for the next 3 years if he plays.
Yeah.
So the question kind of more becomes, if you're a rebuilder or a middler or a contender, what are you doing with Josh Jacobs? Because there's another guy, I think he's a little more than 1 year older than J.K. Dobbins, and he's got about 800 more carries to his name. So if you're a rebuilder, clearly you're trying to move him, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Unless if you're getting pushed into contendership maybe next year, then you're keeping him. I think it depends on which way your team's going. If the arrow's pointing up, then if you're right on the cusp of contendership, maybe you keep him. But if you're rebuilding, and it's still not a clear that you're going to be a great team in 24, you're probably looking to move them, even with that long-term deal. And as far as a contender, it's kind of the same question with JK. Clearly, his value is going to go right back up if he gets a long-term contract. So he's at that age where it doesn't really matter if his production is peaking out or not, because as we've seen with other running backs, 27 seems to kind of be the age where it's like where these guys are really starting to fall off.
Right.
So now you've got maybe 2 for sure years with Josh Jacobs, even though I kind of think just the way he is, I still kind of in my mind think 3 years of RB1 numbers with this guy. But in 3 years he'll be 27, and there's definitely a path here just on age alone that his production really starts falling off. So Josh Jacobs at 25 years old gets the long-term contract, and you are a contender. Are you keeping, or are you looking to move now that his value is not going to get any higher than it is after he signs a long-term contract?
I think he's a hold in pretty much every situation.
Yeah.
Just based on what you brought up, he's going to be. What Josh McDaniels likes to do with running backs. You know that Jimmy Garoppolo, is a proven commodity in the NFL. He is a guy that is going to play the same way he's always played. Peak performance with a strong running game and a decent defense is a Super Bowl contender with Jimmy Garoppolo. He's been to the Super Bowl as a starter and as a backup, but we don't really count that. He will lean on a running back, and so will Josh McDaniels too. Josh McDaniels is one of, albeit just a weird play caller, he's one of the better play callers.
Yeah.
He finds ways to get the ball in his best players' hands, and he did it for so long in New England, leaned on Edelman, leaned on James White, leaned on Shane Vereen even, like guys like that, Shane Vereen, James White,
Brandon
Bolden. Yeah. Rex Burkhead. He'll get his guys the ball, and his guys will catch passes. They'll run block. They'll pass block. They'll be split outside running routes. And so a guy like Josh Jacobs being the focal point outside of Devontae Adams, the focal point of that offense, he's going to, as long as the Raiders aren't terrible this year, they're going to keep McDaniels around, and they're going to Garoppolo signed a 3-year, $60 million deal or something like that. And
60 sounds high, but I don't have the number in my head. So
I don't either, but he got a bag, and he's going to be the quarterback there. And so Josh Jacobs is going to get carries. He's going to get receptions, and he's going to be an RB1 for the next 2 years minimum.
And as a middler, as myself, who is this, my team in the RSJ Superflex Dynasty League is kind of a rebuilder, but it's not a conventional rebuilder. I really don't have the draft capital to back it up, but I have all these young guys to kind of make me more of a rebuilder, mainly because of my quarterback situation. In 2023, Anthony Richardson, Jordan Love, they're not set to set the world on fire at all at this point. You could argue that the guy who's most set to set the world on fire is Trey Lance out of all those guys. So not really expecting to make any kind of championship run with this quarterback room in 23. Well, here I am. Look at the youth of this team here. Breece Hall, Marquise Brown, I think, is really my oldest receiver, starting receiver on this team.
25.
Yeah, I think he's 26. Yeah, you got more young guys with Elijah Moore, Rashad Bateman, Javonte in his third year. Njoku is 27, but he's still playing tight ends where you can break out at 27 just fine.
Yeah.
And then a whole host of young guys not named Cordero Patterson on that bench. So here's one scenario where I do got to slightly disagree with you that Josh Jacobs is a hold in every situation. To me, Josh Jacobs, bam, signs a contract tomorrow. I'm putting him on the trade block. Again, it wouldn't be the first time, but I'm putting him right back out there on the trade block and seeing what I can get. Clearly, in this situation, I'm not trying to get anybody older, but yeah, I'm going to throw him out there because his peak is probably not going to be any higher than it is as soon as he gets that contract. So I'm going to have to find out.
Yeah. Say you could get a guy like A.J. Brown, straight up. A.J. Brown for Josh Jacobs. That's an immediate smash,
Right.
DK Metcalf and a second rounder. I would probably do that.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe. It came out of my mouth.
We've gone over DK and just kind of how he's, at least in 22, was just still kind of underperforming. So I would have to think about that one, I think. But
okay.
Yeah. But definitely so yeah, not looking to get any older.
Yeah.
Looking to try to get younger. So here I am with Josh Jacobs. Here I am thinking about J.K. Dobbins ceiling all day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how about some, real-time trade talk in the RSJ Dynasty League, right? We check out fantasycalc.com. What do they got going as far as trade values? They got Josh Jacobs before any contract signing. He is same value as J.K. Dobbins, 2024 second, 2024 third. Well, Emery, he had those picks, so we got to change it up a little bit. And here's what kind of equals them up. J.K. Dobbins and a 2025 first for Josh Jacobs and a 2026 round 2. This is a pre-contract signing for, I guess, kind of both of these guys have the contract concerns, but definitely for Josh Jacobs, pre any long-term deal. So clearly that value is going to go up as soon as he signs one. So first look at this, Jacobs deals on the table. Are you taking this?
No.
Are you taking Jacobs for J.K. Dobbins straight up? If a long-term deal is signed tomorrow for Josh Jacobs.
Straight up, yeah, probably. I would throw you a little kicker there too, but
a little bit,
yeah.
because I still don't know even what I think about straight up. I think it's you know, let alone that these two particular guys are fantastic conversations to begin with on their own.
Yeah.
I think something like Josh Jacobs for Dobbins straight up is a really interesting conversation.
Absolutely. I think that based on what I just said, I mean, if like I said, he would be my RB4, like overall, not on my team, but overall an RB4 for a guy who is, we just talked about his ceiling was RB5.
Mm-hmm.
A year and some change younger, I would definitely have to throw you a little bit more there, but I don't think it's that far off if you're expecting to get younger.
Mm-hmm. And now we're talking. We're talking just age. I believe J.K. is a little less than a year younger than Josh Jacobs, but like pointed out earlier, Jacobs has 1,072 carries to his name. J.K. has, Jacobs is entering his fifth year. J.K. entering his fourth year only has 229 carries to his name.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a kind of a point that we talk about a lot with running backs, as far as like they don't have a lot of wear and tear on them.
Yeah.
But so I think one of these times we're going to have to actually dig in, unless you have like this go-to article that you know about that talks about how much wear and tear really makes a difference for running backs. Like, I think right off the top of my head, if Raheem Mostert had 1,200 touches 1,200 carries by now, he might be out of the league at 31 years old. But we keep bringing this up as a point. We're going to have to get some rock solid data to back this up here, whether or not it makes a big difference. Because if today Jacob signs a long-term contract and you come at me JK for Josh Jacobs, that's definitely maybe the biggest point I'm going to have to look into as well. He's got a fourth of the carries. How much does that matter?
Exactly.
Definitely a factor. That's about all there is on Jim. You had something?
No, I mean, I'm trying to wrap that up, being like, I hadn't thought about it even straight up. I'm like, my opinion, Josh Jacobs has got the much higher value and is in a little bit better position. But I don't know. I'll have to think about that. I think when I brought up the Tua argument, it would be to trade Tua as well. It would be flip for a quarterback, a top 10-ish quarterback that I can get a first-round pick and a flex guy. I can get or 2 second-rounders and a guy I can play in my flex, and hopefully make it possible for me to get a quarterback down the road. Hope that Derek Carr can piece something together. But it wouldn't. I don't think Tua would be part of my long-term plan. I would move it to a guy like Xenos who doesn't have a quarterback and try to milk whatever he's got going there.
Well, he's got some options at receiver now.
Yeah. But we shall see.
Yeah. We shall see what happens.
Now on to one of the most disgusting parts of the NFL coming forward this year.
Yeah. What's my first? I know what my first slide is, so I can wait on that. But yeah, so the Vikings released Dalvin Cook and have a vibe that, to me, is a very transitionary vibe in their backfield. And so you kind of got to get your microscope on this backfield and try to get out ahead of what they may do here in the near future. Because we've got, like you said, Alexander Mattison set to be a starter this season. But what's he going to be even in 2024, right? So here's a guy who bop, bop, bop. Here's a guy that hasn't outdone or underperformed his scouting report since day one. Lance Zierlein called him a jack of all trades backup with the ability to step into a heavy-duty role if called upon. His talent as a pass catcher could move him up the running back food chain. This is exactly what Mattison's been his whole career. And you look at this contract that he got this past offseason, one of the last of the first wave of running backs to get signed. He ends up going back to Minnesota, gets 2 years and $7 million. Nobody wanted to give this guy 2 years and $10 or $12 million. Here's a guy who has handled the workhorse role and gets receiving work. And the NFL is just like, you're a really, really, really good backup. And so I don't think anybody anymore, anyway, maybe right off the bat when Mattison got the contract and Dalvin Cook got released, maybe they were like, oh, it's going to be Mattison for the next 3 years. I don't think anybody's thinking that. So it's really all about how we think future's going to be then as soon as next season.
Right.
Mattison, 5'11", 215, 220. He not fast, path to success is receiving talent and as a power back, but that power has been lacking. He's you go through the yards per carry here through his 4 years, 4.6, 4.5. That dropped to 3.7 and 3.8. And that correlated somewhat with his yards after contact per attempt. The guy's supposed to be a power back jumping over everybody and stuff like that. 2019 was his highest yak per attempt. 2022, they dropped every year up till last year. 3.22, 2.9, 2.79, 2.76. So you start at 13th out of 45 running backs. So out of 45. The qualifier did it out of however many carries Alexander Mattison got. The other running backs in the group got at least that many carries. So that was the qualifier here. So 14th out of 45 in 2019. Drops to 40th out of 56 in 2022.
Yeah.
Right. So 3.8 yards per run is 47th out of 56 backs with as many carries as Mattison in 2022.
Yuck.
So all of this, combined, I don't think there's any surprises here. I'm looking at Mattison as a 1-year starter.
Yes.
Right. Is that, again, anything unreasonable there?
No, that's the fact. It's been for over the last couple of years. It is the connotation around Mattison is that he's sort of a plodder. He's like he's gotten to the sort of like how Ezekiel Elliott was last year, where run into the back of his O line, get you 3 yards, and pop right up. You need 3 yards. He'll get you 4 the next play, 2 the one after it. A guy that doesn't have any massive skill set that is different than anything else that we could find in the NFL. Great, like you said, in a 3-week stretch where your lead running back's shoulders dragging on the ground.
Right.
Can he produce over 15, 16 games? Probably not. I don't know. I mean, 4 yards an attempt is pretty nice. Okay, let's get into these other guys. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't think we're saying anything surprising about Mattison. But I don't know right off the bat. I want to ask you if you have what's your Ty Chandler take? Because I don't really know. I particularly have one. This is a guy who coming out of the draft in 2022. Todd McShay called him a starting running back. But here's a guy. Yeah, he's fast, 4.38 speed as far as his 40, and he has receiving talent. But it's generally agreed on by analysts. He lacks some agility and burst. And while Josh Jacobs is entering his 5th year, Chandler is only starting his 2nd season despite only being 3 months younger than Josh Jacobs. So maybe the biggest point, especially as far as Dynasty is concerned, Like Ty Chandler is a guy who's he's got some receiving talent. You get him in the open field, and he could outrun a defense, I think. So, how much he'll siphon away from Alexander Mattison's work, don't know. It might not be very much, just because we've seen Mattison take on the full workload and be just fine. So that's something that I don't really know what to expect to this point. A little bit of a kind of a wait and see. And
I would, looking at this, I like you said, I don't have much of a take on Ty Chandler outside of knowing that he was called out coming out of the draft as starting running back. He sort of qualifies for me as a gadget guy. I mean, sub 4.4 speed is great, decent ball handling skills. But does Minnesota need a gadget guy? They seem like to me an offense that plays traditional football. Like they've got two. I don't want to call Jordan Addison a stud, but two great pass catchers, a young tight end, and they're going to run the ball enough. They're gonna pound it down your throat when they can, and when they need to throw the ball, they've got guys open. And Kirk Cousins also factors into this decision, I imagine, a good deal, because he's entering the last year of his contract. He's 35 years old. Is he the long term? Is he at least the next 3 or 4 years? Is he the guy? Is that
maybe? I could feel I can see him being there until he retires at 39, 40.
Yeah, same here. But I mean, does Kirk Cousins need a gadget player to make Minnesota be, instead of just division winners and winning like 8 one-score games? Does Ty Chandler, his involvement in the offense, and an Alexander Mattison sized portion of the offense, does that make them any better? No, it doesn't. I don't think so. At least I don't see him as much of a difference maker. I think it will come down to him being a gadget guy, and that's not really what Minnesota needs, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think was 2022 Kevin O'Connell's first year in Minnesota, because we're talking a lot about a Mike Zimmer led team that was very much played traditionally. So I don't have that's something I might have to go back and look at just to see how much the scheme changed with O'Connell compared to Zimmer, because I don't know that it was. I feel like I don't remember exactly what was said about how Dalvin Cook's role changed last season with O'Connell, but I feel like there was one. And so when you said traditional, I kind of made me kind of want to double check to see how traditional. Because didn't Kevin O'Connell did he come from the Rams, or am I messed up?
I'm not totally positive. I know that there was supposed to be some big uptick in Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook was supposed to be the game breaker. He was supposed to be the guy. I ended up taking the bait. I took him in the first round last year of our redraft league, and he played well enough, but Dalvin Cook's going to miss a game or two here and there. He's going to have games where he doesn't score a touchdown and doesn't contribute much in the way of the offense, but he played well in that offense. Where did he end up?
Kevin O'Connell was the OC with the Rams in 20 and 21. So right off the bat, you're coming from, that system. I think you're coming from Sean McVay. You're not really doing things in a traditional way. Definitely not in the more of a Mike Zimmer traditional sense. So.
Fair enough. I just think that the skill position, the talent in Minnesota sort of screams traditional, But that's with Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, traditional as in they would prefer a workhorse back as opposed to a committee, or do you think they care moving forward if it becomes one or the other?
See, I think that's where you're right when I'm thinking about a Zimmer-led offense, because he is obviously a defensive-minded workhorse sort of guy. But I mean, I I think, I don't know, coming from the Rams are different under McVay. But I mean, last year Dalvin Cook 264 attempts, 4.4 yards per carry, 56 targets, which is second most in his career, but he's sitting right at around 50 targets a year. Nothing really changed there, unfortunately. Do you see? I don't see Mattison getting 250, 260 attempts this year. Do you?
I think he could this year, just because it's not so much a Ty Chandler thing as it is a DeWayne McBride kind of thing.
Okay.
That's been my main focus. Clearly, Tunes, if he's still listening, he knows, because I went and traded for him in a package to get DeWayne McBride on my team, because I think he could be a very nice buy low, who has a path to becoming kind of a lead back. But we're sitting here looking at Ty Chandler right now. Ty Chandler, I think, could take a little bit of Madison's work away this year. Even though I think Mattison carry-wise could still end up with like 250 or 260. My gut tells me right now, and my gut's been wrong a lot, but my gut tells me right now that there's a good chance in 2024 we could be looking at a running back by committee that is DeWayne McBride and Ty Chandler, because they're kind of thunder and lightning. Like, whereas Ty Chandler has the raw speed, DeWayne doesn't have that raw sub 4.40 speed, and Ty Chandler has some good hands in the passing game. With DeWayne McBride, we have no idea if he's got good hands for the passing game, because he only got 10 targets in his 3 seasons at UAB. And so McBride, man, he's so polarizing.
Sure.
Let's see. I don't know if I got to read this whole thing. Probably not. But where should I start reading this here? Let's see. About DeWayne McBride. The UAB product is of the most intriguing prospects in this rookie running back class, as he has solid size and athleticism to go with elite college rushing efficiency, but also several concerns, including fumbles and extremely limited receiving work. His career marks of 484 carries, 7.3 yards per carry, 4.31 yards after contact, 32% first down conversion rate, 74% third down conversion rate are all tops in this year's class. On the other hand, he fumbled 10 times. I have 9 times because I'm going off of PFF, so we'll get to that. But and his career receiving line is 5.29-0 on 10 targets. That's in 30 games. McBride will battle with Kenny Nwangwu and Ty Chandler for work behind Alexander Mattison. So here's some more. Second in PFF's elusive rating, only behind Bijan Robinson in 2022. That's with running backs with at least 180 carries.
Okay.
4.6 yards after contact, highest in the class. Non-Power 5 school, though. You got to remember that with all of this. Non-Power 5 school. So you got non-Power 5 school going against him. You got his receiving talent going against him. That's definitely those are definitely legit, right? So I checked out some recent history of running backs with 7th-round draft capital and running backs with college fumble issues, and if lack of college receptions means much. Lack of receiving work does have correlation. I don't have like a table up or anything like that, but we'll just go with it has correlation. I got a couple. Let's see where this is at here. A couple things from an article from Number Fire. They're the ones that took a deep dive into how much target share and reception market share for running backs matters at the next level.
Mm-hmm.
And you see the correlations right here. There's no when everything was taken into account, running backs from 2000 to 2018, the correlation is kind of no surprises there. If you didn't get much in college, then you didn't get a lot in the pros.
Yeah.
Another table right here that kind of says right about the same thing. First one went off of, I think, just target share. Let me see. Team reception percentage. The second one just goes straight up with college receptions per game. But there's no, it's direct correlation at every level right there, and with both of those. So a total lack of receiving work is definitely a concern with McBride.
Right.
As far as this 7th round draft capital, for the last 10 years, the only notable ones were Chris Carson, Justin Jackson, Myles Gaskin, Isaiah Pacheco. That was going back 10 years. That's really the only ones that had an NFL career to speak of.
Mm-hmm.
So that's only 4 out of 36, right? But the thing with McBride is there were most, if not all, analysts had this guy going higher. If their draft grades were picking out a round for this guy, it was before the 7th. Lance Zierlein was 4th round. The Draft Network they had in 5th round. So the fumbling issues were another primary concern for DeWayne McBride. So how much do fumbling issues really matter in the grand scheme of things? So I went, and first of all, I'd like to throw out.
Oh yeah, lay it on me.
I'd like to throw out one of my favorite stats, and I don't even know how this is possible. I didn't dig in and see exactly how Bob Campbell could have the most career fumbles per rush attempt by a running back with 5. 5 fumbles per rush attempt?
That's a hell of a stat.
I can't do it, man. We got to call it a day. I can't read this and function after that. But
did you look into any more of who Bob Campbell was?
No, I haven't. That's on the list, definitely. We were stumbling upon that, and it's not like there was another 15 running backs where it was above 1.
That doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. No, there needs to be some answers. But, so I went back. How far back did I go? 24th, 2016. So this one is this right? Give me a sec. Because I don't think that's. Well, this one is not. Hold on. Yeah. So this isn't the complete table, unfortunately. But it's the sample size. I went back to, I think, another 2 years beyond here. This goes back to 20 running backs who started in 2017. I think I ultimately went back to 2015. But the numbers ended up being pretty much the same, really. So running backs who had a resemblance of an NFL career, who had college fumbling issues. And basically by fumbling issues, I just mean they had around at least as much of a fumble rate as DeWayne McBride or worse.
Got it.
You see some of the names on here: Jonathan Foreman, Dalvin Cook, Marlon Mack, Jeff Wilson, Miles Sanders, Cam Akers, Travis Etienne is on here, although he shouldn't be, so you can ignore him. Ramondre Stevenson, Jonathan Taylor, Tyler Algier. I ended up taking him off too, just because it was this is a regular season. This was all regular season carries. I ended up going with regular and postseason carries in the final table, and that changed the numbers up a little bit to where I took off Travis Etienne and Tyler Algier because their rates went down. But you've got guys on here where, according to PFF, DeWayne McBride fumbled 9 times out of 484 carries during his college career. That was a 1.86 career rate for fumbling. So that's around our starting point here. And so Deonta Foreman, Dalvin Cook, similar college fumble rate. Then you guys got guys like Marlon Mack, the man, the myth, the legend, 2.17 career college fumble rate. That went down to 0.51 in the pros. You got Jeff Wilson, 2.95 career fumble rate, much worse than McBride. That went down to 1.9 in the pros. Miles Sanders, 3.11% college fumbling rate. That went down to 1.22 in the pros. The totals here on this particular table come out to 2.08 career rate of a fumbling percentage. These guys collectively got that down to 1.26 career rate. And this is for guys like Ramondre Stevenson. And so far over the past 2 years, he's got 6 fumbles over 343 carries. That's a 1.75% rate. That's right up there too. We don't really hear about his fumbling issues. If we go, the one thing about ETN was, if I could get it to, so yeah, you see Travis Etienne. The real reason I had him on this table initially was because in the pros, 5 fumbles over 221 carries. That's 2.26% fumble rate, which is 0.4% higher than DeWayne McBride. So basically, it was all kind of the same. I didn't end up finding any pro running backs going back to 2015 whose careers got derailed from fumbles, except in 2015. The only exception was Melvin Gordon. We all know last year he had fumbleitis. Last year it was 5 fumbles in 90 attempts. I'd have to do this. What is that? That's one every 18 attempts. So that's almost 5%.
Yeah.
So it took almost 5% before the Broncos were like, dude, get the hell out of here.
I think that is that's the contemporary sort of comparison we make, that Melvin Gordon, probably Miles Sanders before last year. Those were the 2 guys that you heard about most with these the fumble issues. I didn't know Miles Sanders had a 3% fumble rate in college, which is not very good. But you look at it now and it's 1.22. It's delicious, It's like he's fumbling just as much as the next guy,
To be fair, I don't know that any of these guys have 7th round draft capital. These guys, their talent won out, and kept them playing for at least a little while. But I think that's the big thing in McBride's case. He, I think, has the least draft capital out of any of these guys, and so he's going to have to make sure he utilizes his talent. Like if he goes out there and produces like a lot of these backs did, he'll keep getting chances if he fumbles the ball once every 50 times.
Right.
But it definitely doesn't help him. It can turn into a factor. So his unfortunately his leash is shorter because of the draft capital, I think.
Yeah.
But we see that 2%, and even that was that we're talking about 9 over 484 carries is 1.86%. I'm going off at PFF. So I've seen places that say 10 fumbles, another spot said 11 fumbles. I'll go with Pro Football Focus and go with the 1.86% career fumble rate. And so there was a lot of talk about the fumbleitis being why he dropped so far. Like I said, Lance Zierlein, 4th round draft grade, like Draft Network, 5th round draft grade.
Yeah.
So if that's like a reason that his draft capital fell, and even if he sticks with that same fumble rate, to me, I look at these numbers and I think that I'm not really worried about that. Then I think he'll still, they'll still go back to him just as long as who he is as a runner translates to the NFL. And then one more interesting thing about his lack of receiving work, something that I got from Yard Barker.
Okay.
Use them very much. They listed DeWayne McBride as one of their 25 diamonds in the rough. And This quote stood out to me from Vikings general manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. He says the running back coach Curtis Modkins has been doing this a long time and coached some really good ones, some really good running backs. And he kind of knows what to look for in those limited opportunities when you get a chance. And he is super connected with running back coaches. So we had some good intel that he's got more pass game value than he showed. I'll take that.
Sure, absolutely.
Because we're talking about a guy who, like, we say that Nick Chubb, Eric Henry, yeah, they didn't get any receiving work in college. Barely. This guy got less than 10 targets in 3 years. When we talk about, oh, they didn't get any, this guy really didn't get any receiving work. But little tidbits like that, and I don't think Adofo-Mensah's like coach speaking here. I think he's being honest. I don't think he has a reason to lie, at this point. But maybe he does, and maybe McBride never sees a target, in his life. But I think there is a path there for McBride to not build a receiving rapport, but actually create one. And this isn't a guy who, only had 2 targets a game. This guy had 0 targets a game. So weirdly, that might be an anomaly in that we really don't know if this guy can catch the ball because they really didn't throw to him. And I don't know if a coach out of UAB is going to say, well, that was, just the scheme. If they have, I haven't seen it. If they do, if this, UAB coaches come out and say, yeah, well, we didn't really scheme it for him, I'll definitely pay attention to that. But to this point, I haven't seen it. But so when I look at the Vikings backfield, I think about a DeWayne McBride and Ty Chandler committee in 2024. That's my guess. But it's not really about confidence or not to me, because like we say a lot, in a year a lot can change. What if in 2024 the Vikings go out and draft a round 1 running back? I don't know if that's Adofo-Mensah's style. It doesn't really seem like it is, but I could definitely see them taking a day 2 back in 2024. If it's round 1, it's game over for everybody. It's that guy who is the lead guy, unquestioned, in that backfield. But if it's a round 2 or round 3 guy, it's game over in theory. I think there might be a little bit of room, but say none of these guys really show up and separate themselves in 2023 as far as efficiency goes or promise or anything like that. Yeah, maybe the Vikings take a day 2 running back, and then all the guys we're talking about today, it's pointless.
Yeah. And when you said who could these day 2 options be, I looked into a little bit of like some early projections, and I came up with 3 guys. Some of them, so I had 1 bruiser, 1 pass catcher, and 1 sort of hybrid. All right. The first guy that I thought of was hold on one sec. Was Braylon Allen out of Wisconsin, who looks to be a day 2, day 3 sort of guy. Probably a day 2 guy moving forward. He is a big dude, 6'2", 238. A guy that's sort of in the similar to like the Mike Zimmer sort of style of Vikings offenses. Big guy, going to get downhill quickly, and can create offense that way by just moving chains. That was the bruiser guy that I thought of. A guy that's a little bit more shiny, flashy would be Will Shipley, the young running back out of Clemson, 5'11", 200 pounds. Really, really. I mean, here's your classic white college scouting report. He's a gritty guy, going to fight for yards, but he's also a huge part of Clemson's offense in the passing game too. So there's like your 2 different styles. Say Adofo-Mensah wants to go one way or the other. He's all in on Kevin O'Connell, and but they want to pick a direction at running back. They know that they're going to get 2 or 3 years out of this guy. Second or day 2 capital. He's going to be in the mix at least for the next 2 years, and this is the direction the team wants to go to round out Kirk Cousins' career, right? They've got 2 guys sort of in those aspects. The third guy that I thought of was Trey Benson from Florida State. Maybe a late day 2 guy. It's going to be interesting because he's out of Florida State, 6'1", 215. He just has a lot of wear and tear on the tires. You know, he was the feature back last year at Florida State and is now going to be the feature back again this year before he comes out. So it's going to be an interesting timeline here for all of those guys, and especially the backfield in Minnesota. But those were just in a day's worth of research. Those were the 3 guys that I came up with. 2 guys that fit 2 different molds, and then 1 that it would be complementary to both.
And when you say tread on the tires, how many career carries has he got?
Let me find that out. I just know that he was all over the place last year.
To be fair, if we're looking at we're talking about the Vikings, talking about wearing the tires in college. Dalvin Cook sitting there at 687 career carries and 79 receptions, for what that's worth.
I guess not many. He's got in 2 years. He's got 160. Not too much. I was thinking it was more. 154 carries last year, 6.4 average for 990 yards, 9 touchdowns.
All right. Because to me, the back to own in this backfield is McBride. Out of Mattison, McBride, Chandler, the guy is McBride. And I'm not concerned about the fumbleitis. And at this moment, I'm not concerned about the lack of receiving work he got in college. The numbers I brought up out of that Number Fire article, that was, I didn't pick out, I don't even know if they picked out particular running backs that bucked the trend and bucked the correlation between how much receiving work you got in college compared to the pros. But I'm willing to wait and see if McBride forms a receiving role for himself, even if it's just a little bit. Like I'm not – pass protection is one thing that I haven't kept up on in this backfield. And maybe I should have, because that might be a deciding factor on who stays on the field on third down. Like, ultimately, if it turns out McBride's got some hands, but Ty Chandler's the better pass blocker, it's Ty Chandler on third downs in 2024, maybe even 2023. So, a lot of wait and see here. But I think the way the McBride ran, you gotta consider that he was at a non-Power 5 school, but you can't discount his production. And just watching some tape on the guy, it seems like his style can translate to the pros, and it seems like he's hungry. Something you want to know. In theory, all these guys are hungry, but you never really know. This guy, from what I've read up on about him and heard about him, seems like he's hungry. Seems like he's sort of in the kind of Kareem Hunt style. Like, Kareem Hunt wasn't the fastest, but he ran pissed off. DeWayne is a guy who you listen to what he says. He is pissed off if he's taken down by one guy. He's like, that's not good. Not happy about it. And so
I don't ever want to meet a guy named Dwayne in the C gap. That's not. I don't ever want to do that.
And you better bring your buddies too if you plan on taking him down. He's not going for just one guy, but taking him down. So a lot of to me, DeWayne McBride is the buy low here. Don't really consider Ty Chandler a buy low. And I guess he's kind of a hold unless we see like a big maybe receiving roll out of this guy, but I don't think that's going to happen either. Like, And I think clearly we can all agree Alexander Mattison is a sell high as long as he gets a work role this season.
100%.
He's probably sell high. It's not going to be. Do you see Mattison? He's got 2 years, $7 million. So in theory, he could get a workhorse role in 24 too. But I mean, do you see that happening?
Not in the slightest. No, they're only committing what, $3.5 million to him.
Yeah, and there's just the efficiency hasn't even been there. Even the efficiency that was there was in his first 2 years. It wasn't even there.
It's gone now.
Yeah. So this is a real interesting situation because we've seen undrafted and real late round backs emerge before. To his credit, Arian Foster, he was undrafted. I think he only had 5 fumbles and 650 attempts in college. So that's less than 1%. But when he got to the pros, it was something like 17 fumbles and 1,500 career carries. So that was just over 1%.
Yeah.
So we don't have we can't if Arian Foster had fumbleitis and that carried over into the pros and he still had a very, the career he had, then we'd have an example of somebody you could go, okay, here's somebody who had 7th round draft capital or was undrafted, had fumbleitis, and still went on to have a productive career. We don't. If it's there, I didn't find it because Arian Foster was the big one I thought about when thinking about how much of a leash you got depending on your draft capital. So I don't have a good example to say if McBride does get a case of the fumbleitis, I can't see his draft capital, it doesn't save him. So his leash is shorter than most, and for me, I'm not really worried about it. I think it was overblown. I think it was kind of surprising at the end of the day that he ended up falling to the 7th round. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah was surprised that he fell to the 7th round. I think they said they had a similar grade on him too, 4th, 5th round. So they were real happy to get him there too.
Mm-hmm.
So DeWayne McBride, I think he's 22. Mattison is 25 or 26. Ty Chandler is 25. McBride's the guy to go get out of all this. McBride's the guy to get. Try and get rid of Mattison.
What's the price you're looking for if you've got Mattison? What do you want in return?
I might if he's still going to be a workhorse in 23, that's got to be a 2nd rounder, I think, because you're probably sending him to a contender, right?
Yeah.
You're not sending Mattison to a rebuilder or even a middler. I wouldn't think.
No.
So it's got to be. I would think a 2nd at least, and I might even go for a little more because it's like Mattison. I don't know if there's another comparison to Alexander Mattison. His situation seems real unique in that he's been able to get so much volume on so little efficiency. I don't know. I don't know who do you compare to Mattison? I just don't know.
Yeah, I don't have anything for you there.
But if you know he's going to get that workhorse role, it's got to be at least a 2nd, I would think, because that's a lot of volume. That's too much volume.
Yeah.
You're around about in the same area there?
Yeah, my initial thought was a 2nd, and I was like, is it a 2nd round pick for a 25-year-old running back? Okay, sure, yeah. But then I'm like, the guy only is a 3 yard per carry guy.
Yeah.
And
if you're a rebuilder, then I'm thinking about maybe less than a 2nd because he's not doing anything for my team anyway. If I'm a contender, it's definitely a 2nd. If I'm a middler, maybe I think about less than a 2nd too. Maybe I consider it. If I have an outside shot at winning the ship in my league, I don't think it's less than a 2nd. If I'm rebuilding, yeah, then we can talk.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you completely. Yeah, my initial thought, like I said, was 2nd rounder, but then I don't know how many people would give up a 2nd rounder straight up for him.
If somebody who just needs that one maybe last running back to get them over the hump, or one of those.
But you don't have anything in the flex spot. You don't have any subs, any other talent.
as good as we talk about Jackson's team, he's got McCaffrey and Eckler, and I think that's it. Really, he might have one or two flex-worthy guys, but it's low flex. You know, I think if McCaffrey or Eckler go down, I think he's in trouble in his RB2 spot. So it's kind of a team like that.
Yeah, that's probably how it would be. You'd be like, okay, well, I'm giving up the 20th overall pick in the rookie draft.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he doesn't have a backup running back.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Ronald Jones, Keshawn Vaughn, Jordan Mason, Chase Edmonds, or Zonovan Knight. Well, he does have Leonard Fournette, but I don't know.
Is anybody going to sign the guy?
I don't know. Is anyone going to sign Dalvin Cook?
Is anyone going to sign Ezekiel Elliott? Like these guys, is anybody going to sign Kareem Hunt? Like, what was he just visiting the Saints? What does that mean?
The Saints are gonna roster 4 starting running backs. Doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. So yeah, that's that might be the look. Maybe we're giving Jackson ideas over here. I don't know.
I know. Yeah, he's supposed to stop talking now.
And on that note, we're at the end of my slides, at the end of my notes. And it was a good, solid, almost 2 hours. What do you think? You got anything else to add for us today?
I don't. I enjoyed the sort of differing conversation we've had because we can attribute a lot of it to our teams. We can talk about our teams in certain aspects, but now we're talking about guys. We're talking about their just straight up values, which we've hammered home that it's really hard to do in a vacuum without knowing team breakdowns and things. And that was our point with the Anchors series, that these guys are scheme proof, situation proof. But guys that we're going to start talking about now are going to be valued so differently. Like you brought up the fact that you could find a scenario where J.K. Dobbins is worth Josh Jacobs straight up.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't thought about that, but that there's just situations there where you have to get younger, and there are differing values of both of those guys. I think this is going to be interesting. I think I brought up when we talked about in our texts when you brought up the list of potential guys. I think like this sort of young wide receiver crop that is getting towards their next their next contract will be an interesting conversation if we want to go that route next week. But it's cool to break down these sort of situations. I enjoy it.
Hold on. I have it. Let me think about it.
All right.
No, I think I lost it. Yeah, but that's. I think maybe what I was thinking was with all of this, so hard to judge value in a vacuum. So, nobody cares about our fantasy league, but maybe you care about it enough to get your minds churning and keep your values fresh, which is what we're here to do, what we're here to try to do. That's the reason we bring in the RSJ Dynasty League into the conversation, because you need a backdrop. You can't just say who won or lost this trade. No, we need context. And redraft, we need context. And Dynasty, that much more. So anyone who checked us out, thanks for sticking around. I'll bring up my inner wolf. Say, hit that like button, subscribe. It helps us get out to more people. I don't know what else he says. That might be it. I don't know if I'm forgetting anything, but yeah, have to pop on with you, Emery, and we'll do this. We'll do this again. Maybe next week, maybe not. We'll see. We usually it's Tuesday. Today it's Monday. We'll figure it out.
We shall.
All right, and we'll see you next time.